story. We have a few minutes for it, which is good. So you will recall, we're telling you the story of the Mayor Sholem Blazinski, they say when he passed away. It wasn't long ago. I mentioned to you that he was a big mashpia, Kadev, and gave wonderful shiurim. And the Kadev, a lot of people to Chassidus. So you heard his story, just to remind you, that he came from a family of Parisa v'Chassidim who lived in Warsaw. And he learned in the yeshiva in Warsaw, in Warsaw, called Mesilas Yeshorim Yeshiva, Musa Yeshiva. And one day a fella comes in and says, his name is Abarbanel, I don't know who this person is. And he said that he was attending a shir given by Rabbi Moishe Shmotkin. This is the grandfather of the great-grandfather of the Shmotkin family, the Gem video, that's his great-grandson. And this Abarbanel is telling the boys that there's a wonderful shir, and he wants to invite Rabbi Moishe to give a shir in the yeshiva to the Bacher. Obviously, he spoke to Dan Holla, and they agreed, and as we heard why, because this Rabbi Moishe Shmotkin was a successful businessman, and the deal was that as long as he was giving donations to the yeshiva, he could come and give a Tanya shir. So this Rabbi Blazinski related that he was only 14 years old, he had many questions, and finally his questions were not only answered, but they just disappeared. They disappeared in the face of learning Chassidus Chabad Tanya. He felt healed. Chelis Ava. He said that now we're up to this part of the story that the shir continued uninterrupted for some time until they reached Perek Lamed. This is around Pesach of 1921, when suddenly even his donations, Rabbi Shmotkin's donations, were no longer enough to buy the yeshiva's goodwill. The story continues. The Rosh Yeshiva was a misnagid. This is a Musa Yeshiva. Let the Bachrim know that the shir would have to end. And if they wanted to continue learning Chassidus, they'd have to go to a different yeshiva. Obviously, what happened was, we appreciate your money, but we do not appreciate the revolution you're bringing to the yeshiva. You're turning these boys into Chassidim, and that's not our derech. So they're told very clearly, this story repeated itself many times in many yeshivas, you want to learn Chassidus, Chabad, you have to leave. This was a shock for all the Bachrim, since they enjoyed learning Tanya and could not imagine just giving it up. However, try as they might, the Bachrim were unable to convince Rosh Yeshiva to change his mind. In the end, most of the Bachrim, aside from the Meir and another 11 boys, gave up fighting and accepted Rosh Yeshiva's edict. The 12, this is a fascinating piece of history now, friends. The 12 Bachrim who refused to stop learning Tanya went to Rabbi Moishe and told him about the battle they were waging. He simply responded, no, let us open our own yeshiva. And that's how Timchet Timimim started in Warsaw. So after Pesach, the new Timchet Timimim was at Warsaw and in Otwotsk. So the new Timchet Timimim in Warsaw was established by these 12 Bachrim, located in the local Chabad shul. This was the first ever Timchet Timimim in Poland, as all other Timchet Timimim at the time were in Russia. As Chassidim I want to do, Rabbi Moishe and the 12 Bachrim immediately notified the Frierdiker Rebbe of the new undertaking. The Frierdiker Rebbe was elated and immediately sent the new Timimim, the new Bachrim, a letter with brachas for the opening of the yeshiva. Rabbi Meir's family was not too fond of Chabad Chassidus. Again, they were Parisa v'Chassidim, as they believed that Chassidus was not something that should be learned by either the masses or the young. Learning Kabbalah, Sfiris. One day, during the month of Av, in 1921, the Parisa Rebbe himself called for Rabbi Meir. You could actually find him on the internet. Who was the Rebbe at the time, even a picture of him. And he calls him in. Respectfully, Rabbi Meir immediately answered the Parisa Rebbe's summons. Going to him is asked. During their meeting, the Parisa Rebbe quizzed Rabbi Meir, this Bacher, about Chabad Chassidim and their ways. Eventually, the Parisa Rebbe asked Rabbi Meir to chazer, to review a maimer that he had learned from the Kutei Torah. Rabbi Meir chose the maimer, B'chol Banaich Limudi Hashem, expressing what he had learned with great clarity. When suddenly, the Parisa Rebbe cut him off after only 10 minutes. Surprised, Rabbi Meir stopped talking and was shocked when the Parisa Rebbe said something which sounded derogatory to Rabbi Meir about the Frierdiker Rebbe. I could hit the pause button over here and just tell you, there was a famous Fabring in Yuchvat, 1975, I'm pretty sure. I remember hearing it as a Bach in Australia with a hookup. And the Rebbe spoke then about the three tkufas, the 3 10-year periods of the life of the Frierdiker Rebbe, as the Rebbe. 10 years in Russia, 10 years in Poland, and then the last 10 years, 1940, 1950, in America. It was a most unusual sikha, the Rebbe said with great emotion. And I'll just tell you this, that when he spoke about the 10 years in Poland, his point was how he suffered, the Mesiras Nefesh, the battles he waged. He had to fight in the different battles. Obviously, the battle in Russia was communism. The battle in America was assimilation and apathy. And the battle in Poland, David said these words. His name was Yosef Yitzchak. It says about Yosef, and his brothers were envious of him. And the Frierdiker Rebbe, this was just a full expression. We can understand that. The Lubavitch comes, stay in Russia. Chabad comes now to Poland. Poland has its own way, its own shita, its chagas, coming now with Chabad Chassidus and attracting the best minds, obviously. It was a threat, not blaming. But it's a great envy, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was that the yeshivas were attracting the best and the brightest. So the Bacher Meir here, Blazinski, hears the Parisa Rebbe saying something which was derogatory. Now, we'll just conclude this part of the story, 3 parts, friends. Rabbi Meir was unsure what to do. If he answered back, let's look at the edelkeit of this Bacher. This would be disrespectful to the Parisa Rebbe. On the other hand, he was unable to remain quiet and continue hearing negative things about the Frierdiker Rebbe. Tomorrow we'll tell you how he reacted and the consequence of that. All right, friends.